So right now they're not sure, because if they can get one of their own to play center, they could possibly trade Jorge Soler to get another starting pitcher, which is the other thing the Cubs need, that and depth in the bullpen, which is part of their issue as well.
Yes, and I think that the Cubs will probably prefer to fill their needs by trading Jorge Soler, a guy that I know a lot of teams would like out there. And it was interesting what you said about Jason Hayward. I know that at the deadline last year, there was some talk, at least among the media people, could they get Carlos Gonzalez out there and see if they could work out the outfield that way? They didn't seem very interested in it. However, I think with what Carlos Gonzalez did from May on for the rest of the season, frankly, not getting him may have cost them the playoffs. But if they're able to get Jason Hayward and have him for a few years in that outfield, then you're looking at a team that could win a World Series. And what you said about the Cubs, I'm really interested to see what they'll do exactly, how they'll kind of shuffle the deck there. Excuse me. Upton to the Cubs, that would be nice to watch.
I got to say, this is one of the first off seasons that I've seen almost more teams or more players willing to go places than teams that want to spend money on them. It's very funny. Usually everyone's fighting for the one or two big guys, and this year it seems the exact opposite. I do have one Rockies question for you really quickly.
Yes.
They were really high on, now the guy's name escapes me, Jonathan, the pitcher, John Gray.
John Gray,
yes. Thank you. I don't know why his name escaped me. John Gray. Last year he did not look all that great. Are they happy with his progress and the way he's coming? I know that he's one of their absolute studs and the guy that they absolutely love in Colorado. Are they happy with the way he's been progressing?
Yeah, they like him. He had some of the just break-in woes there, but he was drafted in 2013, so making it to the majors pretty quickly, which usually doesn't happen with the Rockies, but making it to the majors in 2015. He had some good performances. His numbers, if you look at them, were awful at Coors Field, but he actually had one or two of his better performances there, and he had some pretty good performances on the road also. I mean, this is a guy that has that front of the rotation talent, just not the experience, and they knew he wasn't going to have it, so they gave him about 50 innings in the major leagues. And yes, some of them didn't go well, but some of them did. So what's going to happen, they're not going to go in the season depending on him being in the rotation, but they would like to see him develop his breaking pitch better. He throws a pretty good fastball. They worked with his delivery a little bit, and I think that if they're able to unlock all that potential, he could be good for them. Now, my history of watching pitchers at Coors Field is that a lot of times that first full year is not the best, but if he progresses and then you see you really see him start to come into his own the second half of the 2016 season, then you could look at a guy who could really be a difference maker in the National League West. I mean, even the numbers won't be as good as someone pitching in AT&T or Dodger Stadium, but he can get you pretty far. I mean, I look back at Jeff Francis and Aaron Cook, the guys at the front of the rotation, the couple of years they went to the playoffs, 07 and 09, and also they had their best rotation ever in 2010. And also Ubaldo Jimenez, it took him about a year and a half before he had his best days there, and then he was very good for a couple of seasons.
Has there ever been thought of bringing back a Pedro Estacio to be a pitching coach there? Because I know that he actually thrived in Colorado.
Actually, Pedro is working as a special advisor, and he was on 4 or 5 different road trips. He also is working with some of the young pitchers in the Latin American program. They just had their Dominican fall program, and he was there, and that was where Jordan Lyles. I've got the J's all mixed up. But Jordan Lyles actually went there after his foot injury and threw in front of Pedro Estacio. But, yeah, you looked at Chad Bettis, what he did last season. I watched during spring training. There was a period where Bettis wasn't even being used in spring training games, but he's working with the pitching coach Steve Foster and Pedro Estacio. Pedro actually came in to spring training a couple of times, and he worked specifically with Chad Bettis. And Bettis ended up 8-5, pretty good numbers. There were a couple of down performances, but, he really opened some eyes. So Pedro Estacio is a part of this thing already.
Well, guys, I want to say this was a great discussion on MLB free agency. Fish, why don't you let the good people know where they can find you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at thefish1969. You can find me, obviously, on this fantastic Inscriber digital media network every Wednesday on Sports Infusion with my co-host Pamela Michelle from 6 to 8 Pacific time. Of course, I give Pacific because I'm out here in L.A. Or every Thursday on WBAD.net, and we are also replayed on Inscriber digital media network with my co-host Chad Tatera on Fantasy Jam, and that is from 5 to 6:30 Pacific time.
Fish, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a good
Nick,
one.
It is my pleasure. Anytime you want me on, you know I love you. I love your show. You guys rock. Keep going and keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
And Tom, why don't you let the good people know where they can find you, because I know you're getting ready to travel on to Nashville tomorrow morning. So.
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell you what, it's a big time for everyone, and I hope everyone stays with MLB.com, where all 30 sites rotate through there. As far as the Rockies are concerned, just go to Rockies.com, and that's me. I also have a Facebook page under Thomas Harding Journalist, and on Twitter, if you just plug my name in there, it's at Harding _ at spelled out _ MLB. But if you just put in Thomas Harding under Twitter, you'll be able to find my tweets there, and I'm hoping to be tweeting not only about the Rockies, but just pretty much anything that comes up in baseball during the time that I'm in Nashville.
Great. Have a good time in Nashville. Definitely going to keep an eye on what's going on during the winter meetings, and have a good trip.
Thanks for having me.
All right, have a good night. That was Thomas Harding and Andrew Fain talking MLB baseball. We're coming down to the home stretch here on the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. But before we do, I'm still thirsty.
You may not always drink beer, but when you do, make your choice. Ruby Diamond IPA. Prepare yourself. DeWalt Brewing Company.
I could go for one of those right now, but we can't because we're still, well, personally I can't because we're still on air. We got a few minutes to go. But Drew.
That's never stopped me. Nick, that's never stopped me. In fact, I'm dying.
Who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? Anyway, it's Saturday night. It's 11:30. The Big Ten championship game might be coming down to the final play right now. Michigan State and Iowa State. This will determine whether I was right last weekend. Everybody laughed me almost off the air saying that Iowa may win this game. But I will say this. Right now, first and goal for Michigan State with 1:54 left, 13-9 right now. This has been one hell of a defensive struggle. Iowa never got into the red zone. Their only touchdown was on an 87-yard bomb. Michigan State, this is their fourth trip into the red zone. They only have 2 field goals. But that can change at any given moment right now. Connor Cook just made 4th and 3 with a 4-yard run. This is the ultimate nail-biter. Let's just say that. Earlier today, chalk has held. We had, I'm trying to remember the games now. Alabama doing what Alabama does best. Derrick Henry left, Derrick Henry right, Derrick Henry up the middle, with a little sprinkle of Jacob Coca. And, well, they dominated, absolutely dominated Florida 28-14. And, Drew, I got to tell you, Alabama's defense ran roughshod on Florida. And their special teams, a blocked field goal, a blocked punt. I mean, it was just another amazing performance by the University of Alabama.
Well, and you knew this game was going to be one-sided. The Florida Gators just did not have the firepower to go up against Alabama. I got to give the Gators a lot of credit, though. They fought hard. Their defense stepped up and kept an Alabama offense that could easily run away from them relatively in check. If Florida had a smidgen of offense, this could be a little bit different. But while the special teams defense did an outstanding job, they did give up a punt return touchdown to Florida as well, so there was the equalizer. They got the safety early on, but they gave up a touchdown later. So not flawless. They took advantage of the fact that Florida has no real kicker. I mean, their field goal kicking is absolutely atrocious, and got a really easy block. I mean, I watched that replay, and that offensive line for Florida during that field goal just got absolutely manhandled. It was the varsity squad going up against the freshmen. They just ran them over. But kudos to Jim McElwain and the Gators. You know, I joked to my wife before the game started and going on like Hannah Howard Cosell would be, you know, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Actually sounds more like Keith Jackson. But the Alabama, the champions of the West, one of the best teams in the country, and Florida, the champions of the East, because someone had to be. This game was not a even matchup, but the Gators came to play, and McElwain really got them going. I think Alabama may have looked past them and was thinking playoffs. You saw some tempers get away. C.Y. Jones was for Alabama nearly got in some big trouble. Nick Saban ripped his head off. This was actually a surprisingly good game. Very entertaining, to say the least.
You know, in the first half, it was a defensive struggle. I mean, both offenses were really having a hard time moving. And I got to tell you that, you know, I was pleasantly surprised in how well that, you know, Florida was playing defensively. But you just had to know, if they could have moved the ball offensively, it was only a matter of time. And I mean a matter of time before, you know, Alabama would start getting rolling. And once they did, it was just, you know, it was just mind-boggling with how they were moving the ball at ease against Florida's defense. It looked to me like Florida's defense was just getting tired. And if you look at the time of possession, it was 41 minutes to 19 minutes. If your defense is on the field for 41 minutes, yeah, that's an issue. So I'm thinking in the next recruiting cycle, McElwain's got to go out and get some offensive weapons, because if they don't, this is going to be the same thing that's going to happen. That's going to hinder Florida every year. Let's move now to the AAC championship game, where we had Houston beat Temple. Houston will be going bowling on New Year's Day. Your thoughts?
This is great for the little guys. This was we often see the smaller conferences wiped away and ignored. I got to tell you, Nick, you know, we talk Power 5, Group of 5, based on combination of how the American has played this year. You had 4 teams ranked worthy. You had Memphis, Houston, Temple, and Navy. Navy's still ranked, by the way. 4 out of 12, that's 1/3 of the conference rated in the top 25. That's really good. We may, you know, you see this for a few years, we may be starting to talk Power 6 again at this rate, because if Houston comes out to play on New Year's Day, they win that bowl game. You know, you add that to what UCF did in 2013, or 2013 season, 2014 bowl game. You're building a real credibility for this conference. This was the Big East at one point. It was a fledgling conference. You got 12 schools in there that people really weren't giving much mind to, but they're starting to become legit. And with the head coaching changes going on, Memphis lost Justin Fuente to Virginia Tech, replacing Frank Beamer. What happens there? UCF hired Scott Frost, and I can tell you that fan base has become beyond re-energized. South Florida with Willie Taggart, 3rd year, that program is finally starting to deliver. And you got, you know, Star Power in Cincinnati with Tommy Tuberville. You still got Navy with I can't even pronounce his last name, but he's that good. You have a lot of power. And Tom Herman, Houston playing with the big boys, signing Herman to a new contract that pays him over $3 million annually. That's a big boy contract. That's a contract as if we expect to be power conference worthy. This is huge for the American. This is really, really